Hello and welcome to the Sugar Beet Harvest. On behalf of Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals, we thank you for participating this year. This safety and orientation video is a very important part of participating in the beet harvest. We need your undivided attention. And if you're not paying attention, sleeping, or talking during this video, you will be asked to leave and you will not be eligible to work. Many of the topics today have to do with on-the-job behavior. We expect you to respect authority and to conduct yourself in a safe and professional manner at all times. This means that your actions and performance will be monitored. Not following safety instructions, unprofessional conversations, foul language, and improper behavior, including standing around and not working while clocked in, will not be tolerated. Please treat your coworkers as you'd like to be treated. If you do not follow these rules, you will be terminated and asked to leave. This will affect your season-ending bonus and may affect any future opportunities with Michigan Sugar or Express Employment Professionals. Express Employment Professionals policy does not tolerate associates reporting to work impaired by drugs or alcohol. If you report to work or exhibit behavioral characteristics consistent with drug or alcohol impairment at any time during your shift, you will be tested, disciplined consistent with state law, and pending those results, you could be terminated. If you possess, sell, or ingest marijuana at the worksite, you will be in violation of the policy and disciplined up to and including termination, whether or not you possess a medical marijuana card. If you are chosen for a position, you'll be notified by your Express Employment Professionals Harvest Supervisor. At that time, you will learn which station you are assigned to and which shift you will be working. The Beet Harvest Hotline is a toll-free number with an extension for each station. You will be expected to check your hotline prior to each shift for any shift-related news, including weather-related stops and starts. The toll-free number for Express Employment is different from your Harvest Hotline and is the number you would call to alert us if you will be late or unable to work. If you don't call, your absence will be considered unexcused. Unexcused absences can affect your season-ending bonus, and even worse, can affect our ability to put you back to work. Please write down both numbers and keep them handy.
Working the harvest is difficult and can be long hours. If you want to get paid and paid correctly for all of your hard work, it is important that you pay close attention to your time card. It is your responsibility to make sure that your time card is filled out correctly. You need to make sure that your name and last four digits of your social security number are legible, as well as the week ending date. If you know your job, you need to fill out your job. If it's piler operator or special equipment operator, whatever job you've been assigned to, you need to have on there. If you have any questions, you need to ask your harvest leader or your ag staff. Each day, your harvest leader is going to total up your hours on your time card. At the end of the week, you are expected to review your time card and sign at the bottom. In an event that you are moved from one station to another, please do not take your original time card from your station. Please punch in on a new time card when you get to the new station. It is very important that you are the only one who is punching in and out. Punching in and out for anyone else other than yourself is not acceptable. Anyone found to be violating these requirements will be terminated and possibly prosecuted for time card fraud. If you exceed 40 hours worked in one payroll week, you will be paid at a time and a half for any hours over 40. Each pay period is Monday through Sunday. You'll be paid every 2 weeks according to the schedule posted in the scale house. If you have any questions regarding pay, please call Express Employment Professionals at the toll-free number that can be found in the scale house and on your orientation card.
Extreme weather. Extreme weather can be defined as conditions hazardous to life and/or property. These events can cause severe damage to property and could result in injury or death. Common weather events for Michigan. Severe thunderstorm. A storm that produces 1 inch hail or larger and/or winds equal or exceeding 58 miles per hour. Hail can cause significant damage to property such as houses and vehicles. Hail can result in injury if struck by a large hailstone. High winds can turn loose objects into flying projectiles. In the event of a severe thunderstorm, the best option is to seek shelter indoors, preferably away from windows. Lightning can generate up to 1,000 gigajoules of energy and temps of 28,000 degrees Kelvin. To put this into perspective, it's enough energy to power a household for 1 month. The heat given off is 50,000 times hotter than the surface of our sun. It's very dangerous. Lightning, MSC lightning policy. Piling ground operations will shut down for a minimum of 30 minutes after the last lightning strike is reported within a 10-mile radius of the site. Piling ground management will receive alerts and reports via a company-approved weather app to determine lightning strikes within the 10-mile radius. Piler employees will be instructed to take refuge in their vehicles or an alternate designated area. Management will give the all-clear once the 30 minutes has expired from the last lightning strike. Management has the right to determine by the storm's activities whether to extend the shutdown. Tornadoes. Although rare for the mid-Michigan area, tornadoes can and have occurred. In the event of a tornado, employees will be instructed to seek shelter in the nearest building or designated safe zone. Each location will have their own action plan for a seeking shelter procedure. High winds. High winds can occur without a nearby thunderstorm. Extreme caution should be taken during a high wind event. Piler booms should be lowered into piles or on the ground, when possible, to prevent damage. Trucks facing perpendicular to the wind direction when unloading should only load on the side of the piler that would eliminate a truck from tipping over into the piler. High winds can tip a truck over, especially when in the unload position. Other extreme weather events. Heat wave. Drink plenty of water and when possible, find a shaded area or air-conditioned room. Recognize the early signs of heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Heavy sweating, cold and pale, muscle cramps, nausea or vomiting, dizziness, and headache. Seek medical attention immediately. Arctic blast. Dress in warm layers and keep clothing dry. Avoid long-term exposure on exposed areas of your body. Recognize the early signs of frostbite on exposed skin. Numbness, muscle stiffness, discolored skin, blistering after rewarming. Seek medical attention immediately. Flash flood. Immediately seek higher ground. Never drive through a flooded roadway. Michigan Sugar Company harvest typically runs from August through November, and Michigan weather fluctuates greatly during this time frame. Below are some suggestions to keep in mind through harvest. Pay attention to weather updates daily. Dress accordingly for the weather conditions. Bring extra clothing. Dress in layers. Be constantly aware of changing conditions. Safety is always important.
Your first line of defense on the job site is proper clothing and personal protection equipment. Since you may be exposed to wind, sun, rain, and possibly even snow when working on the pilers, it is important for you to dress appropriately for any of these conditions. Essential work items include warm, layered clothing, a rain jacket, and a good set of work gloves. It is very important to have a good pair of work shoes, preferably boots that cover the ankle. If you cannot wear this type of boot, you must at the very least wear a good pair of leather tennis shoes. Mesh and cloth shoes, as well as sandals and open-toed shoes, don't offer adequate protection and may not be worn at the work site. Jewelry and loose clothing that could get caught in the machinery should be removed, and long hair should be tied back and covered with your hard hat. The hard hat, safety vest, safety glasses, and hearing protection will be provided by Michigan Sugar. If you show up to work wearing shoes or clothing that are deemed unsafe by your supervisor, you will be asked to return home to change. You may or may not be permitted to return to work that day. Since the working environment next to the piler is noisy, Michigan Sugar provides disposable hearing protection that you can get from the scale house each day that you work. To use them properly, roll each earplug to compress it, and then pull up on your ear with one hand while inserting the protector into your ear with the other hand. Skid steers, also known as bobcats, are in almost constant use on and around the pilers. Skid steer operators must be thoroughly trained in order to operate that equipment. If you have not been properly trained on skid steers, do not attempt to use them. All operators must wear safety belts as well as hard hats, safety glasses, and safety vests while operating the skid steer. You must be aware of the skid steers that are at work in your area at all times. Awareness of your surroundings is of vital importance to your safety on the job site and is your responsibility.
Team safety awareness. While personal safety is generally perceived as an individual responsibility, the practices of safety should be handled with a team mentality. Every member of the piler or vent crew are a team. We work as a team and look out for each other's safety as a team. This section will review how to handle some common situations regarding the safety of yourself and your team members. While this list is not all-inclusive, it will highlight some common areas for concern. Every member of the piler team should be conscious of when the piler will need to back up. This is the responsibility of every member on the team. Every team must communicate with each of its members prior to the piler moving. Team members' location during a backup are as follows: piler operator, operator's platform, tracks controller, reverse control button location for tracks. Make sure your path is free of debris or obstructions. Tear taker or ground crew. Stand in an empty space between beet pile and tracks. Remain visible to the piler operator. Prior to relieving for breaks or at shift change, communicate the team's plan, expectations, and members' location during this procedure. Have a plan in place. If a team member changes at any time during the shift, make sure they are aware of your team's expectations and plans. Cross conveyors swing open to allow trucks to drive next to the piler. They will then swing closed to allow the truck to back in and unload. The swing motion of the cross conveyor creates hazardous pinch points that need to remain free of occupancy and foreign objects. The piler operators must be observant of these pinch points and must ensure the footprint of the conveyor remains free of traffic and obstructions. Everyone else must make sure to avoid unnecessary travel within the footprint of the cross conveyors. When within the footprint or performing work, always make sure you remain visible to the piler operator and have notified him or her of your intent prior to beginning work. Communication, visibility, and awareness are key. The following page will identify these pinch points and motion of the conveyor. All personnel must remain out of the tip zone of an unloading truck. Truck boxes can tip at any time without warning for several reasons during the unloading process. The duration of this hazard starts the moment the box begins to raise into the air and remains until the box has been completely lowered. Failure to refrain from occupancy of this area can result in disciplinary or even discharge. If a box tips, it can result in severe or life-threatening injuries. All tear obligations with the driver must be completed prior to the beginning of the unloading process. Avoid unnecessary communication with drivers during unloading. Employees must be forward of the dirt belt or dump boxes during the unloading process. No one is to be near or around the truck. The following page will identify the tip and safe zones. Guarding has been installed to protect employees from any harm due to exposure from machine operations. No machine is to operate without proper guarding installed. Guarding is not to be removed or tampered with without the direction of supervision or maintenance personnel. Never enter to clean a dirt belt or box without properly performing lockout/tagout. Use caution when entering and exiting for cleanup. While performing cleanup, be cautious of foreign debris or damage within the work area. The belts can have steel bars that are broken or bent and can present a hazard. While cleanup of these spaces cannot be completely avoided, they can be minimized by the following: operators making sure they completely unload all a truck's dirt. Operators jogging the dirt belt, preventing all truck dirt from piling in one spot or creating a massive dirt ball. Periodic checks of the dirt box or any buildup or damages. Every piler is equipped with several emergency stop buttons, also known as e-stops. These e-stop buttons provide the ability to shut down the entire piler in the event of or to prevent a serious or life-threatening injury. These are not to be used to shut down the piler outside of an emergency or in place of following lockout/tagout. E-stop buttons are pushed in to engage the shutdown. Once the danger or threat no longer exists, they may be gently pulled out, allowing the piler to run. E-stop buttons are located at the operator's platform, tire control box, track controls, and up top by the screen rollers. All pilers have e-stop buttons, and while they all are in the same general locations, they can vary depending on the age and model of the piler. Always know where all the e-stop buttons are located on your piler. Knowing where they are could be the difference between a close call or a severe to life-threatening injury. Most of the time, if it appears that the piler has no power and nothing will run, it is because one of your e-stop buttons may have been accidentally engaged. Kill switches work the same way as e-stop buttons. They will shut down the piler if the switch is tripped. Once the switch is reset, the piler will become operational again. These kill switches are located on most guarding up top by the screen rollers and loose contact once a guard is removed. Once the guard is put back into place, power is restored. Some pilers have these kill switches installed at the bottom of the stairs going up to the screens and dirt box. They are installed on swing gates at the bottom of the stairs. Once the gate is opened, it kills power to the piler. On occasion, booms can plug up with beats. In most cases, this is due to the piler team failing to back up the piler in a timely manner. Machine failures may also occur, resulting in a plugged boom. The severity of the plug will ultimately decide how unplugging will be handled. Before performing lockout-tagout and moving forward with unplugging, always notify your beat receiving leader or supervisor. In most cases, a boom can be unplugged by climbing the beat pile to the boom and removing excess beats from the end of the boom and the area around it. If this does not work, then excess beats may then need to be removed from the boom. In the event this takes place, it will be handled under direction of supervision and maintenance personnel. Again, in most cases, plugged booms can be prevented by good communication among the piler team and their prevention of operational errors. The piler boom is constantly moving, swinging from one side of the pile to the other. Be mindful and aware of boom movement and its direction when operating equipment or other operations taking place within the boom's swing footprint. Avoid unnecessary travel under the boom. If job responsibilities can be completed without travel under the boom, then do so. If the boom is about to swing into a foreign object, utilize the e-stop to prevent it from doing so. Most pilers are equipped with horns that can be sounded from the operator's platform. These horns are generally used for getting truck drivers' attention to the directional signs. The piler operator may use this horn in the event of emergencies. While these horns can be used to get the attention of fellow team members, they should be used sparingly. We fear overuse of the horn may allow complacency to the noise, resulting in it not effective when needed for both drivers and team members. If your team utilizes the horn for communication, make it minimal and reassure that all team members understand the message being conveyed. The key takeaway should be for strong communication among the team. Good communication from the grounds crew to the piler operator will help the operator be able to communicate his or her needs to the truck drivers or other team members. Communication at the beginning of each shift between team members to develop a plan and responsibilities for events. Communication at the beginning of each shift between team members to develop a plan and responsibilities for events will go a long way to operating both efficiently and safely. Truck drivers are not allowed to exit their cabs when at the piler. If a driver exits his or her truck, shut the piler down. You may resume piler operations once the driver has gotten back into his or her cab. Drivers are to have their tailgate turnbuckles removed prior to pulling up to the piler. Failure to do so will result in them being asked to pull away from the piler. Do not have unnecessary conversations with drivers. This way, they do not become distracted from unloading and the operator's directions. Piler operations located on ventilation fields are fast-paced and have increased traffic with equipment crews laying ventilation tubes. These elements require extra awareness for safety by both members of the piler team and ventilation team. Look out for each other and work together. Communication among one another is key. Understanding the roles and expectations from each side will help to accomplish the tasks efficiently and safely. Stay out of the path of all equipment. All equipment operators need to be cautious of both ground crews and truck traffic. Always be aware of your surroundings and the activities going on around you. Worker and truck driver relations. This section will serve to provide you with expectations we have for our employees and truck drivers when on the grounds and at the pilers. We ask that you help communicate with your team and the supervision when you see anything that goes against these expectations. You are not expected and must not attempt to handle confrontations or become confrontational with truck drivers. Please notify supervision and let them handle communication with the truck drivers. Failure to refrain from confrontation with truck drivers may result in discipline or even discharge from employment. Always remain in the cab of your truck while at the piler. Contact beat receiving leaders or supervision with concerns away from the piler and out of the flow of traffic. Please keep interactions with piler employees at a minimum. Turn off headlights while in line. Stay off your phone while at the piler. Remove your tailgate turnbuckles prior to entering the piler. Do not drive over the piler cords. Always completely lower your box prior to pulling forward to get your dirt. Follow the speed limit of 15 miles per hour on all grounds. Be kind and courteous to scalehouse and piler employees. Approach scale deck slowly and with caution. Follow piler navigation lights for all directions while at the piler. Truck maintenance issues need to be resolved in an area where it will not impede piler operations or the flow of truck traffic. Be aware of your surroundings. There are a lot of moving people and machinery. Drivers should always wear a high-vis reflective layer. Hello, and welcome to Lockout Tagout. The purpose of this training education is to provide you with the tools and knowledge of Michigan Sugar Company's procedures, policies, and commitment to Lockout Tagout. Failure to follow Lockout Tagout may not only prove to be harmful or fatal, but can result in reprimand or discharge. Following Lockout Tagout procedures and policies is the responsibility of every employee. Lockout Tagout is the single most important activity that you ever do as an employee to protect yourself, coworkers, and your family. Locks and tags for Lockout Tagout are not issued to individual employees, except beat receiving leaders, maintenance, and supervision. The locks and tags are located at each piler and stored in a designated safety Lockout Tagout supply box. Each piler will have 4 sets of locks. In the occurrence of a Lockout Tagout event, employees will each obtain a lock from this box and follow Lockout Tagout procedures. Upon completion of a Lockout Tagout event, employees place their lock with its key back in the safety Lockout Tagout supply box. Locks and keys are not to be kept on hand by employees when not in use. Lockout Tagout definitions. A lockout tagout is a procedure of steps required to properly de-energize and prevent re-energization of a machine by locking out its energy source so that the maintenance or servicing can be performed to the machine safely. Energy source is the source that provides energy to the machine. That source being of any of the following: electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, or any other form of energy. Stored energy is potential, stored, or residual energy existing following lockout that needs to be expelled prior to performing service and/or maintenance. Energy isolating device, the device that provides or prevents the energy source being supplied to a machine. Example, disconnects at piler's electrical panel or cord power supply boxes. Lockout device, a device that uses a lock to hold an EID in a safe position. Lockout, the placement of a lockout device on an EID in accordance with an established procedure which ensures that EID and machine being controlled cannot operate. Tagout, the placement of a tagout device on the EID in accordance with an established procedure, used to indicate that the energy isolation device, also known as EID, and equipment being controlled may not be operated until the tagout device is removed. Tagout device, a prominent warning device such as a tag and a means of attachment, which can be securely fastened to an EID in accordance with an established procedure, indicating that an EID and the equipment being controlled may not be operated until the tagout device is removed. Normal production operation, the utilization of a machine to perform its intended production function. Servicing or maintenance, activities such as construction, installing, setting up, adjusting, inspecting, modifying, cleaning, lubricating, or overhauling machines. Affected employee is one whose job requires him or her to operate or use a machine on which servicing and/or maintenance is being performed under lockout/tagout. It is also one whose job requires him or her to work in an area in which servicing and/or maintenance is being performed. Authorized employee is one who implements a lockout procedure on machines or equipment to perform the servicing and/or maintenance on that machine. Here are some photo examples. Some photo examples continued of the piler main disconnect, also again known as the EID, and the piler lockout tagout side. Scope of lockout tagout. The standard Michigan OSHA and OSHA covers the servicing and/or maintenance of machines and equipment in which the unexpected energization or startup of the machines or equipment or the release of stored energy could cause injury to employees. This standard applies to the control of the energy during servicing and/or maintenance of machines and equipment. This covers if an employee is required to place any part of his or her body into an area on a machine or piece of equipment where work is performed upon the material being processed, which is a point of operation, or where an associated danger zone exists during a machine operating cycle. Procedure. The following procedures apply to all servicing and/or maintenance of machines or equipment. Minor tool changes and adjustments or other minor servicing activities which take place during normal production operations do not require these procedures if they are routine, repetitive, and integral to the use of the machine equipment for production, provided that the work is performed using alternate measures which provide effective protection, such as guards, e-stops, and safety blocks are a few examples of effective alternative measures. Under no circumstances is an employee ever permitted to place any part of his or her body within a hazardous area, such as the point of operation or ingoing nip point area, while the equipment is running or energized, unless the employee is engaged in certain minor servicing performed during normal production operations and alternative measures which provide effective protection have been taken. Lockout devices will be affixed to the EID by each authorized employee to hold the devices in a safe or off position. No one will attempt to restart or re-energize machines that have been locked out until the locks have been removed and the machine has been released to the operator. Place the machine's main disconnect, EID, into the downward off position. Each authorized employee collects their own lock and key from the machine's safety lockout tagout supply box. All authorized employees take turns placing their locks on the EID appropriately to prevent re-engagement of EID. Make sure your lock is secured properly. Each authorized employee is the only one responsible for his or her own key. Before work is performed, authorized employees must confirm the machine has been de-energized and no stored or residual energy remains. Services and/or maintenance may now be performed. Once service is done, confirm work is complete. All tools, personnel accounted for, and all employees are aware that the machine will be re-energized. Authorized employees begin to remove their locks from the EID.
Authorized employees place their locks and keys back in the safety lockout tagout supply box. Once everyone is clear and all locks are removed from the EID, the machine may have its disconnect EID placed back into the on position. Always yell,
"All clear!"
prior to placing disconnects into the on position. Present employee waits for relief employee to arrive, then explains the situation to them. Present employee shows the relief employee their lock's placement. Present employee gives the lock's key to the relief employee. Relief employee then confirms the key and lock are a pair by unlocking and relocking the device. The present employee is now free to continue with new instructions. Employee contacts and updates their beat receiving leader or supervisor on the progress of service and maintenance of the machine. The beat receiving leader or supervisor places their lock on the EID and locks out the machine. The BRL or supervisor now assumes control of the machine. Employee may now remove their lock and place it back in the lockout tagout supply box it came from. Employee is now free to continue with new directions. Steps for placing EIDs in the on-off positions. Stand to the side of the disconnect box. You do not want your body in front of the disconnect box. With your body facing the piler, place your innermost hand on the EID switch. Turn your head away so that you're looking away from the EID. This way you're not looking towards it in case of an arc flash. Take a deep breath and hold it in. In case of an arc flash, this will prevent any inhalation of any airborne materials. Now you may move the switch into the desired on or off position. Emergency lock removal. Upon the occurrence that an authorized person who applied a lockout device is no longer on site or available, that device may be removed by Michigan Sugar Company provided the following conditions. It is verified that the authorized employee who applied the device is not at the facility. All efforts are made to contact the authorized employee to inform him or her of the removal. The authorized employee is notified by the functional supervisor of the removal before resuming work at the facility. During any shift or personnel change, the continuity of the lockout-tagout procedure will be maintained. When startup of the machine or equipment is anticipated on the changed shift or by changed personnel, an orderly transfer of lockout devices will occur. All lockouts will be verified by the new authorized person before work on the machine or equipment is started. Training. The employer shall provide training to ensure that the purpose and function of the energy control program are understood by employees and that the knowledge and skills required for the safe application, usage, and removal of the energy controls are acquired by employees. The training shall include the following: recognition of applicable hazardous energy sources, the type and magnitude of the energy available in the workplace, and the methods and means necessary for energy isolation and control. Each affected employee shall be instructed in the purpose and use of the energy control procedure. All other employees whose work operations are or may be in an area where energy control procedures may be utilized shall be instructed about the procedure and about the prohibition relating to attempts to restart or re-energize machines or equipment which are locked out or tagged out. Tag-out systems. When tag-out systems are used, employees shall also be trained in the following limitations of tags. Tags are essentially warning devices affixed to the EIDs and do not provide the physical restraint on those devices that is provided by a lock. When a tag is attached to an EID, it is not to be removed without authorization of the authorized person responsible for it, and it is never to be bypassed, ignored, or otherwise defeated. Tags must be legible and understandable by all authorized employees, affected employees, and all other employees whose work operations are or may be in the area. Tags and their means of attachment must be made of materials which will withstand the environmental conditions encountered in the workplace. Tags may evoke a false sense of security, and their meaning needs to be understood as a part of the overall energy control program. Tags must be securely attached to an EID so that they cannot be inadvertently or accidentally detached. Periodic inspection. The employer shall certify that periodic and yearly inspections are performed on machinery, equipment, energy control procedures, and the way it is being utilized. Think before you act. Consequences of choosing not to put safety first. The following pictures are real and showcase results from not choosing to follow lockout-tagout procedures in the workplace. Warning, these are graphic. Picture with pliers in hand, 110 volts, other 240 volts. What can happen in 2 seconds? Both employees cleaning equipment for 2 seconds. Changing a drill bit without following lockout-tagout procedure.
Situational awareness. In this presentation, we will discuss what to do in situations that you may encounter while working on the piling grounds. It is extremely difficult to anticipate every situation that may occur while on the job, but we will discuss some of the most common scenarios and help everyone understand how to respond in a safe manner. Situation: employees forget there is a speed limit while driving on the piling grounds. Every piling ground has a speed limit of 15 miles per hour, and it is enforced. This speed limit is intended to keep everyone safe. Employees, truck traffic, and heavy equipment are constantly traversing the grounds. While driving on the grounds, trucks and heavy equipment have the right of way. Give them the space they need to operate. Response: vehicular speed on the piling grounds. Everyone driving on the grounds is expected to follow the speed limit of 15 miles per hour and follow the dedicated routes. Speeders will lose their parking pass and their ability to park at their pilers. In some cases, this can result in a long walk from the parking lot to their piler and potentially discipline or termination. Situation: truck tailgate will not open. The truck is backed up to the cross conveyor and the tailgate will not open to release the beets. Response: in previous years, drivers have attempted to manually unlatch tailgates while at the piler. This is very dangerous and will no longer be allowed. Drivers will be required to pull away from the piler to work on their tailgate. Under no circumstance are employees to assist the truck driver. Situation: truck driver gets out of the truck while backed into the piler. Response: in previous years, drivers have gotten out of their truck to communicate with an employee or to address an issue with their trucks. Drivers will not be allowed outside of the cab of their truck while backed into the piler. If a driver does get out of their truck, shut the piler down safely and contact a beet receiving leader or supervisor to assist. Operations may resume once the driver has re-entered their truck. Situation: truck driver attempts to climb on the piler. Response: in previous years, drivers have climbed on top of the cross conveyors or other parts of the piler to work on issues with their truck or to get a visual of their beets in the piler. Under no circumstance should any driver climb onto any part of the piler. This is a very dangerous act and has led to severe injuries and death. If a driver does attempt to climb onto the piler, shut the piler down immediately and contact a beet receiving leader or supervisor to address the situation. This situation and response also applies to the piler employees. Situation: where should employees stand while the truck is backing up into the cross conveyor? Response: drivers struggle to see people walking around their trucks while they are backing into the cross conveyor. Piler employees should always be aware of what the truck driver is doing. Never put yourself between the truck and the piler. Always make sure you have visual contact with the driver before walking around the truck. If you can't see the driver can't see you. Situation: Where should an employee stand while the truck is unloading? Response: when the truck is unloading, the trailer creates a tip zone hazard in the area surrounding the trailer. Piler employees should never stand next to the trailer while it is unloading. Employees must stand in the designated safe zones. Those zones are located between the piler and the beet pile or far enough away to be clear of the tip zone. Situation: mechanical or electrical problem is noticed on the piler. Response: mechanical electrical problems can occur at any time on the pilers. If an employee notices any abnormalities with the piler, squeaking sounds, loud vibrations, etc., contact a beet receiving leader immediately. The proper personnel will then diagnose the problem and determine the correct course of action. Under no circumstance will a piler employee attempt to make repairs on the piler. Situation: build-up of mud on and around the piler. Response: over the course of a shift, mud will build up on the piler and will need to be scraped or shoveled to be removed. Some mud removal around the outside of the piler can be performed while the piler is operating. Make sure you are aware of truck traffic while performing this task. If the mud builds up in the piler, example rollers, belts, dirt hopper, this will require the employee to climb into the piler to remove the dirt. Before entering the piler, notify your BRL or supervisor. Ensure the piler has been locked out and all coworkers are made aware of the job taking place. Before unlocking the machine, a head count of all employees will be done along with a count of tools used. Situation: behavioral concerns. Employees and drivers come from all walks of life and sometimes do not make the best decisions. Behavioral concerns could involve any of the following but are not limited to this list: angry drivers, dangerous or erratic driving, hostile behavior between employees or drivers, witness the consumption of drugs or alcohol, verbal or physical harassment between employees or drivers, and witness to weapons. Response: employees must remain calm. Employees must contact their beet receiving leader or supervisor immediately to address the situation. Employees are not expected to handle behavioral situations alone. All situations must be handled with caution to avoid any escalation to hostility between the parties involved. Situation: what should an employee do if someone is injured or has a medical emergency? Response: accidents and injuries happen, but the time it takes to respond can make the difference between life or death. If an employee or driver has been injured or is experiencing a medical emergency, the first thing to do is shut down any equipment the employee is near to avoid further injury. Contact a beet receiving leader or supervisor immediately. Depending on the severity of the injury, 911 may be called for assistance. An investigation will follow once the employee or driver has been treated. Witness statements will be required from nearby employees to assist with the investigation. These statements are not an attempt to assign fault, but to give us a better understanding of what happened so we can prevent the accident from occurring again. Situation: accidents resulting in damage of Michigan Sugar Company or grower property. Response: accidents do happen and sometimes result in damage to property. If an employee witnesses an accident occur, shut the machine down so the proper personnel can determine the cause and the severity of the damage. In some cases, the damage can result in significant downtime. Contact a beet receiving leader or supervisor immediately. An investigation will follow once the employee or driver has been treated. Witness statements will be required from nearby employees to assist with the investigation. These statements are not an attempt to assign fault, but to give us a better understanding of what happened so we can prevent the accident from occurring again. Situation: repairs are being made to the piler. Where should an employee be while repairs are being made to the piler? Response: these are the expectations of an employee while a piler is being repaired. If the work will only take a few minutes, employees are expected to remain at the piler and clean the area. If determined repairs will take 15 minutes or more, the beet receiving leaders will allow the crew to take a break. If the work will take more than 1 hour, management may decide to move the crew to another piler for the duration of work. Every scenario is different and expectations of the piler crew during repair downtime may vary shift to shift. When a piler goes down, this is not the green light for everyone to walk off the job. It is frustrating for all involved to have to track down the piler crew when the repairs are made. Most important, do not leave the area during downtime unless instructed by a member of management or a beat receiving leader. As mentioned at the beginning, this list does not contain every situation that can occur on the piling grounds, just the most frequent. It is up to all of us to keep safety as the priority while on the job by looking out for each other and taking a moment to ensure what you're doing is being done in the safest manner possible.
Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals does not tolerate any behavior that could be perceived as discrimination or harassment by anyone. There will be no retaliation for reporting discrimination or harassment or for cooperating with the investigation of a complaint. All workers are expected to avoid behavior that could be interpreted as harassment and report inappropriate behavior to their supervisor immediately. Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals have a no-tolerance policy regarding sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can encompass a wide range of unwanted direct or indirect sexual behavior, such as sexual advances, requests for sex, unwelcome physical touching, or interference with normal work or movement. Sexual harassment can also occur in the form of a hostile work environment based on such things as sexually implicit or derogatory photographs, posters, cartoons, or sexually explicit language, gestures, jokes, or stories. Discrimination or harassment due to any of the other characteristics listed in the Equal Opportunity Policy can be based on similar physical, visual, or verbal conduct. Sexual and all other types of discrimination and harassment are strictly prohibited. Workers who perceive they have been subjected to discrimination or harassment may ask the person to stop, and if it continues, should report it immediately to their supervisor. If you do not feel comfortable reporting it to your immediate supervisor, call Express Employment Professionals at 855-691-2338 and ask for the Harvest Project Manager. Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals investigates all reports and complaints of discrimination and harassment, keeping all information as confidential as possible within the necessary boundaries of the fact-finding process. Involved workers should keep the complaint confidential, since general discussion of such matters can become disruptive to the workplace. Any worker found to have engaged in prohibited discrimination or harassment will be subject to disciplinary action, including termination. Workers may be personally liable for monetary damages, which Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals will not pay. If a worker has been discriminated against or harassed while on the job, Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals will work together to remedy the situation. We do not expect any worker to work in an uncomfortable environment. Remember, at Michigan Sugar and Express Employment Professionals, sexual harassment will not be tolerated. In addition, any inappropriate verbal or physical conduct from one employee against another that results in fear, intimidation, or a hostile work environment will not be tolerated. Stay professional and show respect to other employees at all times.
Piler cords. Pilers are powered by very large black extension cords and require extremely high voltage to operate, 480 volts, 3-phase to be exact. These extension cords run from the piler to its power supply on a pole or generator. Below are some very important rules to follow while working around the extension cords. No vehicles or equipment are to ever drive over piler cords. Please report to management if this is ever witnessed. Never move or touch cords when power is on and supplied. Cords are to only be moved and touched by provided yellow hot sticks when the cord is live. Avoid any unnecessary close travel around cords. Piler cords are very expensive to replace. Damage to cords can also create opportunities for accidental injury or fatalities. Proper placement of cords is key to the prevention of the above-mentioned concerns and is the responsibility of the entire piler team. Cords are to be positioned so that they are out of the path of beet trucks, preventing them from being driven over. Orange cones are provided to place in a manner that help make the cords more identifiable and visible. Cords need to be positioned so not to be buried in the beet pile. Cords need to be clear of the path of piler tracks for both backing up and especially when moving the piler forward. Constant attention must be paid to the cord's position as operations are continuous and the cord's positioning is always changing and requiring vigilance of the entire piler team. Piler cord placement will require extra vigilance on ventilation fields due to the increased traffic and fast-paced operations taking place. Extra consideration will be needed for the following. Cords do not become buried under tubes. Placement of cord with regards to future placement of tubes and the potential for entrapment. Cord paths between and around manifolds to its power supply and the potential for its entrapment. Extra equipment traffic. These extra obstacles create more help required to reposition the cord. Cords becoming pinched at the end of tubes or at the last tube placed in the row. This especially creates the potential to create a tear in the protective insulation of the cord, creating huge safety concerns. As previously stated, when power is live, the cord should only be moved and touched by the provided yellow hot sticks. Failure to do so may not only prove to be fatal, but can result in reprimand or discharge. Disconnecting and reconnecting the cord to power supply requires the following steps. Disconnects must be powered down at both the piler and pole. Once the power supply is eliminated, the cord can then be disconnected from the pole and pulled to the next pole. Prior to inserting the plug into the new electrical box, always make sure no one has a hold of or is handling the cord. Always make sure the disconnect to the box is in the off position. Once the plug is fully inserted in the receptacle and everyone is clear, the disconnect can be put into the on position. Lastly, the disconnect at the piler can be placed into the on position. Never open piler electrical panels. These are for authorized employees only. Never open power boxes on the poles. Again, these are for authorized employees only. Failure to do so may not only prove to be fatal, but can result in reprimand or discharge.
Confined spaces. OSHA and MIOSHA identify two types of confined spaces. Those are non-permit required confined spaces and permit required confined spaces. For a space to be considered a confined space, it must meet all three of the requirements defining of a confined space. Once defined a confined space, it then must be determined if it is a permit required confined space. It only needs to meet one of the four definitions to be classified a permit required confined space. A permit required confined space can be declassified and become a confined space provided certain criteria have been met to control or eliminate the hazard. The following are the company's requirements for a confined space program. Written program revised 10/2021. Spaces identified permit versus non-permit, evaluation of hazards, contractor coordinator of entries, procedures of migration of space hazards, provide PPE and equipment for roles, responsibilities of CSE team and plans for confined space rescue, review program annually, provide and verify safe entry training and rescue if applicable. Confined spaces are defined by the following three factors. The space is large enough and so configured that an employee can bodily enter and perform assigned work. Limited or restricted means for entry or exit. The space is not designed for continuous employee occupancy. Again, all three of these factors must be met to be defined as a confined space. For a confined space to be defined as a permit required confined space, it must meet one or more of these four following definitions. Space contains or has a potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere, contains material that has the potential for engulfing an entrant, has an internal configuration such that an entrant could become trapped, contains other serious safety or health hazards. Permit required confined spaces are identifiable by appropriate signage. Only trained, authorized personnel are permitted into these spaces once required entry procedures have been implemented. Only trained, authorized personnel are permitted into these spaces once required entry procedures have been implemented. These procedures include, but are not limited to, the following: completion and maintaining entry permits, atmospheric monitoring, implementation of isolation and hazardous control measures, equipment (PPE) required for an entry and rescue, communication procedures, rescue and emergency services. Atmospheric toxic gases, oxygen deficiency, displacing gases, oxygen-enriched explosive or IDLH, engulfment, water, grain, powders, earth, soil, pulp, or other substances, entrapment, tight or convoluted spaces, internal configuration that could trap or asphyxiate entrant, other serious safety or health hazards, electrical, mechanical, steam, fire, or explosion. Acceptable entry conditions are achieved by prepping and isolating space from hazardous and/or the process. Examples: lockout, tagout, caution tape, barricades, ventilation, flushing, blanking, air gapping, double block, and bleed. Atmospheric monitoring, trained user of an analyzer, initial readings, periodic readings, entry readings, appropriate PPE and equipment, gloves, coveralls, boots, hard hats, safety glasses, ladders, lighting, non-sparking tools. Lighting, non-sparking tools. Communications, visual, verbal, radio, cell phone, attendant with authorizer, entrance, and rescue team. Retrieval/rescue, PPE equipment examples: retrieval rescue, full body harness, lifeline, retrieval lifting device, anchorage, respiratory. Rescue plan/team. Air quality is monitored with an analyzer for the following contaminants: flammability, combustibility, oxygen content, and MSC gas potentials. Analyzers will alarm when any level outside the acceptable conditions are tested, preventing or terminating the entry. If analyzer alarms, the space is to be evacuated immediately and remain vacant until hazard has been identified and mitigated for safe re-entry. Ventilation equipment can be used to maintain air quality. Should be in place prior to entry and air sampling. Remain in place throughout entry and air sampling. Airflow rates should reflect the size of space, targeting of rate 4 and 5 exchange per hour. Airborne combustible dust. Estimate by loss of visibility at 5 feet or less. Exit space. Flammability/combustibility. Gas exceeding 10% LFL. Oxygen content between 19.5% and 23.5% is safe. Below 19.5% is oxygen deficient. Above 23.5% is oxygen enrichment. Both exit space. Carbon monoxide, less than 35 ppm, exit space. Carbon dioxide, less than half, exit space. Sulfur dioxide, less than 2 ppm, exit space. Oxygen deficient atmosphere. Safe range is 19.5% through 23.5%. Oxygen deficiency occurs below 19.5%. Oxygen-enriched atmosphere. Over 23.5%, the atmosphere is oxygen-enriched and has the following effects: increased flammability, respiratory irritation. Signs of oxygen poisoning are tingling fingers or toes, vision issues, confusion, nausea, and seizures. Carbon monoxide exposure. Colorless, odorless gas that has the potential byproduct of a combustion. Inhalation is the primary route of exposure. Symptoms include headache, dizziness, difficulty breathing, weakness, confusion, exhaustion, hallucination, unconsciousness, or even death. Permissible exposure limit for an 8-hour time weighted average is 35 parts per million. Ceiling limit is the limit that cannot be reached during any part of the workday. Carbon monoxide ceiling limit is 200 ppm. Immediate danger to life and health of carbon monoxide is 1200 ppm. Carbon monoxide chart. Carbon dioxide CO2 exposure. Colorless, odorless, non-flammable gas. Inhalation is primary route of exposure. Mild effects at low concentrations, suffocation at high concentrations. PL is 5,000 ppm or 0.5% for an 8-hour time weighted average. Short-term exposure limit is 30,000 ppm or 3% for a 15 weighted average time. IDLH is 40,000 ppm or 4%. Carbon dioxide chart. Confined space entry. Team roles, responsibilities. Confined space entry team consists of 4 roles: entry authorizer, supervisor, attendants, entrance, and rescue team. Entry authorizer, supervisor. Trained certified CSE with annual refresher. knows the confined space hazards and effects of exposures, verifies and authorizes entry, briefs CSE team on space permit and entry, validates entry conditions are completed and appropriate, opens closes CSE permits, assists with managing unauthorized personnel, on site for duration unless responsibility is transferred, helps maintain entry conditions are acceptable, cancels entry permit if an emergency preoccupies rescue team. Attendant, sole duty, trained certified CSE with annual refresher, knows the confined space hazards and effects of exposure, understands and uses confined space equipment, atmosphere analyzer, retrieval equipment, communications, maintains permit documentation, monitor readings, personnel, entry/exit times, remains at entrance to communicate and monitor entrance, summons help if needed and performs non-entry rescues, never enters the confined space unless responsibility is transferred, monitors for changes in entry conditions both in spaces and surrounding areas, alarms entrance of exit if conditions change. Entrance, trained certified CSE with annual refresher, knows the confined space hazards and effects of exposure, understands and uses confined space equipment, atmosphere analyzer, retrieval equipment, communications, communicates with attendants, performs work with the confined space, monitors for changes in entry conditions within the confined space, and evacuates if changes occur or mandated by the attendant rescue team. Trained, certified with annual refresher, CPR first aid trained, knows the confined space hazards and effects of exposure, understands and uses confined space equipment, atmosphere analyzer, retrieval equipment, communications, SCBA certified, rescues entrance in a timely manner based on hazards or injury, notifies all CSE if team is unavailable to cancel permits.
We appreciate you all taking time to watch and listen to this video. Your safety is our #1 priority. We want to wish you all a safe and successful harvest. Thank you.